This is Baruch Fleischman here with the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. What you have before you here is Jewish astrology, cosmic science. This person is quite a scholar, and so therefore he has Chidushin to tell us about the way that the world turns, the fact that we are living in a circular universe that seems to be going around and around and around. Now, I'm not talking about the universe beyond the stars, but he is. But even in our own world, this little ball shape here he has right here with 12 different parts to it. He's gone into a lot of detail about explaining exactly how we get to the number 12, how they differentiate in terms of the light of Hashem that is shining on them. So the person that's been doing this is a man by the name of YAAKOV KRONENBERG. Is pretty hidden right now. I can't reach him anymore. So exactly what's going on, as far as I know, he's still well. Let's see what he has to say over here in this section right now. Well, let me see how I can do this so that it can be seen. Try to do it at this level here. I think it's pretty good, not too bad. So he writes, and I will want to start a series of lessons soon on how it's possible to change the influences of the planets, which I think is what many people really want to learn. How can you change the energy? Now, he says that the energy that comes at different times, and is constantly changing because there's energy inside of energy inside of energy, but the ultimate energy are permutations of the four-letter name of God. So how can you change it? If it's shining this way, and you see as the world turns, it continues to change. So he said, how can you change what is coming down to this world? How can you change the way the planets work? So these questions are going to be answered in the series of lessons which I would like you to give. Now he says in Western astrology, you maybe go through psychoanalysis for this purpose of changing the energies and influences of the planets. And through psychoanalysis, the psychoanalysts try to correct your attitude and, in fact, your destiny. They change you and influence. You get influenced. And again, in Western astrology, what the experts are able to understand is the person's chart. So we have discussed, maybe we haven't discussed it as much as we should. I'm thinking about that because he did, Mr. Kronenberg, Reb YAAKOV, did teach me a little bit about this, about what the chart looks like. I really should be working with that. But they don't really have the ability to help the person. They really can't change anything. And if they had it, it's been lost. And today, most of the astrologers are very connected with psychology, and for that purpose, indeed, they use the system of psychology. They use astrology for the purpose of trying to figure out what's wrong with the person they are treating and what that person's problems are in order to prevent those problems from functioning and really messing up a person's, something neurosis and like that, because there are contradictions or conflicts within a person's birth chart. When you're born, Mars does not necessarily go along real well with water signs. So then how does it work? That's a conflict in every single person when they have these different planets in their birth chart. And then they go off with psychology, maybe in order to try to help that person. And there is another system of astrology, which is that of the Indian astrology. And the Indian astrologers use mantras that they repeat over and over and over again. So they use these mantras, which they say to the different planets. And this is what we call Dham. And it's close to idol worship because it's like saying prayers to the planets, like praying to the planets. And for example, it's about asking the planet Saturn, which is the planet which is in my birth chart, very powerful, 20,000 times. You want to say it 20,000 times to be nice. Then maybe Saturn would be nice. And if the planet is really bad, you even get a bunch of priests. You get like 10 or 12 priests together, and they would go around the whole day praying for you, which means saying mantras to the planets or to a specific planet in order to halt the bad influences that they see in your chart. But in Judaism, there are many ways to alter the influences of the planets. But of course, the whole Jewish system is based on Torah and mitzvahs. These are good deeds. And there's no prayer or mantra or anything. Not to say that's 100% true. For sure we have prayers, and we also do mantras. Maybe not the same way, and not for the same purpose, which is said to the planets or the stars themselves. So this is what they do. We don't have that, God forbid. In Judaism, there are mitzvahs which a person has to do. And he says there's a certain amount of commandments which a person has to fulfill. Jews were given a certain number of commandments, and according to an ancient Jewish astrology book, they were given in a way that if you fulfill them, you would overcome the planetary influences, because what you're appealing to is what's inside, the energy that's inside of these moving planets. The energy that makes them, that causes them to move. But he means even in the substance of their reality, there is a Yud-K, Vav-K, or a combination of it that's inside of that planet. And hopefully I will be translating that book, and it's going to come up. And in fact, I have already translated 1/3 of it up to now, and I'm still working on it. I hope it will be finished in the next couple of months, but in any case, that book talks about all those commandments. And if you do them and practice them, nullify the planetary influences. So you have in Breslov, for example, speaking to God. Because you could see that things are coming down, and you're in a situation, you have to go to court on Monday. Or the IRS is calling you, or health issues, or family issues, all different kinds of things. And for example, in the Torah it's written, though thou shalt not steal, and indeed, if one doesn't steal and he or she has a nature of stealing, they can overcome their nature in a deeper way. But let's go on. But we're going to go on another level now. And due to the fact that this is an astrology lesson, we should learn more about a level which is connected to astrology, and indeed would like to talk about the mitzvos and how they are connected to the planets. And if you practice certain mitzvot, they would alter the planetary influences. But I would also like to talk about the fact that it's not only about how the planets send their energies down. In other words, they come through letters, he's saying. But also about how the person receives the planetary influences and the energies in general. And if the person receives these influences properly, then he or she can use that energy better in a different way, maybe in a better way. So it's not only about what comes down. So let me read this again, because I kind of messed it up, but I'm just thinking this may be important. If a person receives those influences properly, so the planetary influences that he said is other places, that it depends on the combinations, the permutations of the name Yud-K, Vav-K in any particular moment, then he or she can use that energy better in a better way. If you see them, so it's not only about what comes down. In other words, the planetary, the influence of the Yud-K, Vav-K is coming at you all the time. It's also about how it's received. There's always a sender and a receiver, and things depend on both of them. So a lot depends on our ability to receive. It depends on the question of how we are able to receive and in what way. Now, in Kabbalah, this is called, we're going to talk about it, of course, but this is called making yourself into a receptacle, because it could be that you have blessings coming to you all the time, not just curses, but you're not receiving them. You're not turned towards the source of the light. Depends on the question of who we are and if we really have the vessels to receive the energy which comes down to us. Because indeed there's a law in Kabbalah according to which God sends down the energy and the amount of energy according to what a person can receive. Now, that's his idea. So if he sends down too little energy, then the person would be lacking energy, and he may be weak, he may be depressed, and things like that. But on the other hand, if God sends down too much energy, then it may cause the person to explode. And it might be too much for them. So we see different situations. So you're in business and suddenly things go they start going really, really good for you. Okay, but this is also a lot of energy coming into you, and it could cause you to crash. So it may be too high, and time may cause the person, so it may be too high in spirit or otherwise, and things like that, until the person will get too much energy. which might break him or her. So God is a person in sending down the amount of energy he sends. So he has a purpose. He always sends down energy which relates to the body in quality and in quantity. Then it may improve your body. But I don't mean in the sense of going out to the gym and things like that. But if you improve your ability to receive, that's what he's really talking about. If you can make yourself into a base kibble, into a kli, a vessel that will hold light, you'll be able to get more energy down. You'll be able to get more of the sustenance from above. So a kind of a way of saying what I'm trying to say is that you could build your base, your ability to be able to receive the light. So Hashem is always sending you the light, but how much of the light can you receive, and how well can you handle it? How strong is your receptacle to be able to get it? So we're going to be talking about that in the coming lessons. There's one more thing I'd like to talk about before we can conclude this series of lessons, this series of lectures. And he says, and that is going to be the connection between the senses and the different parts of the body, which we haven't focused on until now. And so I would like to spend a little bit of time on that. And once more, I'm going to quote from the ancient book called the Sefer Yetzirah. So these body parts are called the 12 directors of the human body, and the connection between them and the 12 senses, which are called the 12 peulot, the 12 actions of the soul. Now, all of this is really something I don't know much about at all, and I'm going to go over this little sentence just a little bit, and for the next year, we're really going to start on this. So he says, which are also called the 12 peulos, which translates into be the 12 actions of the soul, should be discussed before we conclude the series of lessons. And if you take a look closely at the matter, there seems to be no connection between them. Now, I don't know what they are. I'm stuck in the thought that there are 5 senses, and maybe there's something called the 6th sense. He just said there are 12. So where are we coming from? So here's what we're going to do. We'll do this in the next year because I'm getting, just came in off the road and I'm tired. So I'll get this as soon as I can and we'll get back to it. This is Baruch Fleischman. It's the Tikkun Elevator Call.